This presentation is on research process, questions, and hypotheses. Research process. Research process has some components. First one, which is the first step in research, is identification of problem. This is based on the background that before any research will be conducted, there must be a problem to address. Without a problem, research is not possible, or research is meaningless. After the problem has been identified, the second thing to consider in the research process is the formulation of hypotheses. Hypotheses are intelligent guesses or tentative statements that might be proved right or wrong at the end of the study. After establishing the hypothesis, then the next thing is to review literature. The essence of literature review is to deepen the understanding of the problem at stake, is to deepen the understanding of the researcher on the problem he or she intends to address, to see what others have done in that area so that the researcher will be able to know what the study at hand contributes to existing knowledge. After literature review, then data collection. Data collection is very important. Findings are obtained from the available data that have been collected. And after the data collection, then analysis of data. The analysis of data is very important because that is where the researcher is expected to harmonize whether quantitative or qualitative data, to analyze the data in a meaningful manner so that decision making will be enhanced. After data analysis, then inferences and conclusion can now be drawn. The inferences are drawn from the analysis of the data and the testing of hypotheses that have been raised. This analysis of data could be by use of descriptive prose when we're talking about the qualitative research. Then it can now deal with parametric or non-parametric statistics when we are talking about the quantitative research. After inferences are drawn, that is where the findings of the study are obtained. Then writing of report. Writing of research report is the last step in the research process. The next topic is statement of problem. Statement of problem is important in every research. The statement of the problem talks about what necessitates the study, what makes the study necessary, what makes the study significant, what makes the study meaningful. It is a place where the researcher is expected to express his or her own botheration, to crystallize, to make the problem visible. The researcher is expected to make use of facts and figures, and in some special cases, make some little references to show that the problem the researcher intends to study is not a personal problem, it's an academic problem. It's a personal problem when it is only the researcher that have seen the problem. But when other researchers, other experts have also seen that problem, it is now an academic problem. The concern of the statement of the problem is for the researcher to lament on the situation of the dependent variable. If there is nothing wrong with the dependent variable, the study will be needless. Something must be wrong with the dependent variable before a study will be meaningful, before a study will be necessitated. It is a place where the researcher will mention the trust of the study to explain why the study is urgent and why the study must be conducted now. After the problem has been identified, the researcher is expected to raise questions so that if answers are provided to these questions, the problem that has been identified will be solved. And that will take us to research problems. Research questions rather, are questions that the researcher intends to provide answers to them at the end of the study. It is the desire of the researcher that answers to research questions will be provided. In developing research questions, the researcher must put into consideration the statement of the problem that have been raised. Those issues that have been raised in the problem must be captured in the research question. If there is an aspect of the statement of the problem that have not been captured in the research questions, we are invariably saying that the study will be conducted, completed, but an aspect of the problem will remain unsolved. Therefore, it is imperative that the researcher puts into consideration the statement of the problem that have been raised in developing the research questions. There are some qualities of a good research question. Every research question that must be good must not be ambiguous. The language of developing research question must not be ambiguous. Secondly, a good research question must not be double-barreled, must not contain too many issues in one research question. Every research question must address a particular and a single issue. A good research question should also be framed not to just elicit yes or no response. And answers to research questions should be unpredictable. When you are developing research questions, they should not be developed in such a way that the respondent or the questioned will just demand yes or no response. We can use words like what, how, why, to what extent, but do not use words like is, do, thus in developing research questions. A good research question should be comprehensive enough to cover the major aspects of the problem. A good research question must be comprehensive enough to cover the major aspects of the problem. Now, hypotheses. Hypotheses are intelligent guesses or tentative statements that might be proved right or wrong at the end of the study. Hypotheses are important in research, especially in quantitative research, because we make use of statistical hypotheses that are testable. In qualitative research, we make use of what we call research hypotheses, and that will take us to the types of research. The first type is research hypotheses. Research hypotheses are declarative postulations or tentative statements or hypotheses that are not statistically testable. They are used in qualitative research. Well, statistical hypotheses that are used in quantitative research are expressions that shows the relationship between two or more variables that are measurable and statistically testable. Statistical hypotheses are divided into two: alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis is that very hypothesis that is a positive statement, while the null hypothesis is a negative statement. In testing hypothesis, it is the null hypotheses that are tested. The null hypothesis symbolically is given by HO. while the alternative hypothesis is considered to be H1. In testing hypothesis, the researcher is expected to test the HO to see whether to accept or to reject the hypothesis. That will be discussed in subsequent presentation on data analysis. Hypothesis could be directional, alternative hypothesis, or it could be non-directional, depending on how the researcher formulates the hypothesis. Functions of hypothesis. Hypotheses play very important functions in research. The first function is that hypotheses limit the focus of the investigation on definite target and determine what observation to be made. That is the first function of hypothesis in every research. It provides guide and direction in research. Every research that makes use of hypothesis have a specific guide, and it ensures that only relevant data are collected. Hypothesis provides the framework of interpreting findings and drawing conclusions. Hypothesis provides the framework of interpreting findings and drawing conclusions from the findings. Now, hypotheses in quantitative research are considered to be superior to research questions. The reason is simple. Hypotheses are tested, while research questions are analyzed. Hypotheses are tested using inferential statistics, which could be parametric or non-parametric, while research questions are analyzed using descriptive statistics. Therefore, it is now expedient to draw inferences and to draw conclusions from analysis conducted using inferential statistics. We cannot draw inferences from descriptive analysis, but inferences are drawn from inferential analysis. Hypotheses in quantitative research are considered very important because they give the conclusion and the inferences that are drawn at the end of the day. However, in qualitative research, hypotheses are considered or are termed to be playing the role of assumptions because we deal with research hypotheses in qualitative research. Research hypotheses are not statistically testable. Therefore, they serve a similar function with assumptions in qualitative research. That is why in qualitative research, it is not important to raise hypotheses and to also raise assumptions. But in quantitative research, which is called scientific research, it's expedient that the researcher raise hypotheses and also develop assumptions. By way of recap, therefore, this presentation has covered basic details on research process, statement of the problem, research questions, and hypothesis. Thank you.